Welcome to Running for Real, a global community with a shared love and curiosity for running. Together we reconnect with the reasons why we love to run and discover ways it helps us become better people. Whether it's the quiet moments of a morning run while the rest of the world still sleeps, or befriending the strangers next to you at the start line of a race. We are here to connect with others who see running as the common thread that weaves our lives together. Come join me, Tina Muir, as I talk with people from all walks of life, united by a love of running. Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode 343 of the Running for Real podcast. I am excited that you are here. And wow, am I excited to share this conversation with you today with my guest, Yatika Fields. Now, Yatika is a painter, a muralist, and a street artist. His artworks were shown at numerous galleries and museums, including the APEC Young Artists Exhibition and more recently in the Sam Noble Museum. For that reason, you can guess we are going to be talking about art and how it crosses over with running, but we actually go into more than that. And Yatika shares a lot about his journey running UTMB a few years ago, and most recently running in Western States Endurance Run. And beyond that, he even got to make the Endurance Run poster for that. We're going to talk about some initiatives that he's working on in support of the Running on Native Land work that they are doing, and it's just going to be an overall great conversation. I think it's best if we just get to the conversation because I'm going to let him explain for himself. So one quick word from our sponsors and we'll be right to this episode with Yatika. Thank you so much to Örlö for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast. Örlö is the world's first carbon negative omega-3 supplement. Why omega-3s, you ask? Why do I need that? I'm a runner. I don't need my omega-3s. Well, yes, you do. We all do, especially as runners, because runners need omega-3s to be topped up for our brain health, for our heart health, which are two critical things for us as a runner. Our brain health, we need that to stay in the mental game, to stay focused, and to continue to support our body through the training that we are putting it through. We need our heart health for obvious reasons. I don't need to go into that too much. We need it to pump the blood effectively around our body so we can run to our potential and also live to our potential. One of the things I love the most about Örlö is one, that they are 3 times better absorbed than regular fish oils. So they are the go-to source of omega-3 because they are algae-based polar omegas. And because they are made from algae, they are sustainably made. And I encourage you to go check out the Örlö website because you will learn about how exactly they do that. It's quite fascinating. And my second thing that I love about this is that they do not give you those nasty fishy burps, which you will get with fish oil supplements. So you get the 3 times better absorption and they taste good and they go down easily. No aftertaste with that. So I encourage you to go to orlonutrition.com/discount/Tina to go get yourself 12% off. But it's probably just easier to go to the link in the show notes and I will send you directly there to get that 12% off. And also check out the Immunity Boost oral spray while you're there. I've been using it and I've really been enjoying taking it and making sure that I have the best protection I can against all the nasty sicknesses that are going around in my kids' preschool. So thank you again to Örlö Nutrition, that's ORLO Nutrition, for sponsoring this episode. Be sure to go check it out now. Yatika, welcome to the Running for Real podcast. I am so excited that you are here, excited to be able to talk, and thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, I'm excited to be on, and it was lovely meeting you in Austin during the running event, and you know just a little bit more. And then since then, I've kind of listened to some podcasts and get to know who you are. And yeah, it's kind of I feel like the conversation we're going to have, I'm not sure where it's going to go, but I'm into that, and it seems kind of aligned to the journey I'm on and where I want to go, and kind of the wellness aspect to it. So yes, I'm looking forward to it. Sure.
Thank you. Yeah, no, and I very much felt the same. I was a bit bummed that I didn't get much time with you. We kind of only had a few minutes, but in the future, hopefully we will. And yeah, I'm glad you've been enjoying a few of the episodes. I had one in particular that was making me reflect. It was my conversation with him as I was preparing for this of a similar area that spoke to me. So I'm interested to ask a little bit more about that. But I want to begin with talking about some moment in your life. This is how we begin these episodes. Some moment in your life, an epiphany, a realization, a change, something that in a roundabout way has led you to this moment here right now. So if you had something to share that came to mind, we would love to hear it.
For me, I think I move with the months, with the years, just like us all. And I try to change and adapt to where that takes me. I think there's a lot of them for sure, no doubt, that has put me in every place I've been so far. And from New York City to the West Coast and now Oklahoma. But I think the biggest change for me that has led to my wellness and even being alive today, I think, was probably the decision and realization to probably quit drinking alcohol. And that was about 8 years ago. And it just got to a point with me. It wasn't like so bad or chaotic that it was just like, I couldn't maintain anything, but I was one that couldn't just have one and I was done. I was going to party. And I think that was from me growing up in the 20s in New York City and being a bike messenger and being a part of this culture, this urban city culture. And as an artist, I was even involved in the street art scene and graffiti. And it's a very, very wild, chaotic culture. So you mix that with the messenger scene. And it's just a recipe for, I can't even describe it. But, growing through that and surviving it was a big feat in itself because I had a lot of friends that didn't make it in that time, whether, overdosing or getting hit by cars, you name it, it was a wild scene out there. But I just couldn't maintain, I had family members that had passed away in those years and in the months prior to that decision and that realization and feeling. A young cousin of mine, an uncle of mine, and it was all due to alcohol, and it had been in the family. And I'm Native American, Indigenous, and it's a lineage, that disease, that problem within my family, not only mine, but a lot of Native families out there. And it's not understood how to discuss that, how to process that, how to perceive that, how to go through life with that. I think those are kind of part of the traumas that we exist in as Indigenous people and families, and live within our families and tear us apart, kill us. It's part of that genocide. It's part of that movement. It's part of the infrastructure of colonization that was placed on us, and it still exists today.
Absolutely.
Because our ways were taken from us, how we are as a people and community are, for the most part, don't exist in the time than what we had that was so sacred and special to us in ceremonial ways. We still have ceremonies that are there for us, but it's not accessible for a lot, and a lot of people didn't grow up with it and don't have the knowledge and access to it. So there's a lot of reasons and struggles to find self as an Indigenous person in this modern day and age. And for me, I was a bit a part of that, but, I'm lucky enough that I did and was raised in some aspect of ceremonial way of life. And I had that knowledge and well-being and backbone to find the strength, I think, to pull through. And, but that was definitely a catalyst. And I think the moment of a big transition for me from early life to now, and to finding a path of healing, really. And running has been a part of that for me. Yeah. So, I mean, the moment of that was a pretty dark time. Cause I said there was a lot of deaths at that months prior to that decision. And I remember it was a winter. So there's a lot of grieving happening too, but when you're mixed with alcohol and any kind of consumption of toxic materials of whatnot, you're not really seeing straight. You're not really feeling straight. You're not letting the emotions really do what they need to do. So it took about a year for me to, I think, really kind of get that out of my system, kind of mourn the loss of my old self.
Were you still in New York at the time?
At that time, I was in Oklahoma.
Okay.
So I left New York and I was in Oklahoma, and Yeah, so I had family around, but it was a nice time to just be away from everything that I was around that had kind of enabled me to participate in that. But at the same time, I really just kind of had to like lay low and just kind of like rehabilitate myself, because it was pretty much like cold turkey. I did it myself, and I didn't like go to any kind of outside help or influence, you know. And yeah, I think the biggest part of that was just kind of learning for me to forgive myself and make amends, you know, that it wasn't my fault, or and you know, kind of look at things in a different perspective, and kind of grow stronger in a new way and see the world in a new way. And even today, to this day, I'm still doing that, you know, still rewriting and looking at who I am and the world, and healing from that. So it's definitely not over. It's a continuous journey for sure, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. During, let's talk about forgiveness. You were saying that forgiving yourself, and that is, you know, I guess we're diving in pretty deep here, pretty early, but forgiveness is something that we as humans do struggle with holding ourselves to these standards, expecting so much of ourselves, but, you know, letting others have grace and compassion and kindness. What was it you learned about that time, that period of recovery, in terms of forgiveness, in terms of giving yourself that understanding of what you'd been through and processing it, that you would like to pass along for someone who maybe is struggling with forgiveness over something they're doing or they've done, and they're finding it hard to move past that within themselves?
Well, everyone processes emotions in their life differently, and that's the beautiful thing about who we are as humans. When it comes to that, it's important to remember that we are strength, we are strong, we're very able-bodied to hold a lot of information and project a lot as well, and perceive things and project our reflection of who we are on others and situations that aren't really truly there. So I think, you know, there's steps to do it in a healthy way. There's steps to do it in a way that kind of just soothes it in the moment. And there's ways to just kind of look at it and put a Band-Aid on it and then, you know, move on. But I think the most ultimate way to look at it is know that it's going to be a journey, and it's going to be kind of continuous, and it's going to be with you. I don't think the point is to really let it go, but to see it for what it is, acknowledge it, process it, hold on to it, and use it as a tool to be better, for yourself, for your inner self, for your heart, your spirituality, and how you interact with others from there on out, and even yourself. And I think that's taking care of yourself for sure. So it's good rest, a lot of water, you know, exercise, eating well, and then taking moments throughout the day, if you have it, to process that, you know, meditate, whether that's running, swimming, biking. And I think being with those moments, letting yourself feel that, think about it, allows you time to really kind of visualize things. And that helps you moving forward to really do something different. Open up a new pathway, open up a new path for yourself.
Yeah.
That's what I've learned.
Yeah.
I've learned just the world is really magical. You know, I mean, if you look at it, you step back, you know, where we are in this space, in this time on this planet, trees, everything is connected, the energy. And, you know, and a lot of it is just based on, it's in our mind for sure, you know, how we move to this earth. But yeah, healing, you know, letting go of things, you know, that's no small task. That takes a lot, because we're all healing. And that is the truth. Especially coming from the last 3 years, 4 years, you know, the pandemic and what we've witnessed is, and the wars and just so many unrest and, homeless and drugs and, you can pick any direction and find it,
Yeah.
So what I've learned though from outside influences help is that, we can't control these things, and yet we should let it control who we are as our thoughts on a daily, and don't let it manifest itself bigger than it should. We can only control who we are. We can't control that's out there,
Yeah. You mentioned about, being in New York, the roles that you had in, or the identities you had in life, the career path you were on, being, a part of where you were headed down this path. And we've obviously gone over the colonial side of this, of alcohol in, in how it was used and as a weapon in many ways when it comes to Indigenous communities during that period. But how much of it, do you think any of it for you was about, in New York, while there are parks, as you said, it's very urban, you're like, not landlocked, but you're surrounded by man-made things. And you've mentioned that running was a part of healing for you and coming to terms with what you were recovering from. But do you think that played a part in it while I love visiting New York, it does feel so, you're so far away from nature in many ways. Like, yes, of course, we can always connect to nature in any moment. We are always grounded, like, on the earth. But do you think being in New York kind of amplified that for you?
Yeah, it's New York City is its own kind of pseudo infrastructure of a space, and it's an urban space. What once was Manhattan, what once was an island, doesn't exist anymore. Maybe, and I enjoyed Central Park for the sole reason of seeing those rocks from, the glaciers coming down and through there. Seeing remnants of the past. Central Park, I really liked that because I was like, okay, this has history. This is a place, and even the street names of Broadway or down Maiden's Lane or down in these where like the Dutch colonies were and the first homesteads down there within their arrival is pretty interesting to me. And down in Bowling Green, you have the Native American Museum of the American Indian down there.
Yeah.
And so that was a place of connection for me, being home and kind of connecting with the Indigenous community there. But as someone from Oklahoma who grew up on the rivers here and just enjoying the landscapes and the woods and the nature here in northeastern Oklahoma, and even prior to New York City, I was in Boston going to school at the Art Institute of Boston. And even then, I enjoyed it because it was a college town. Boston's not as big as New York City, and it's very accessible to get to nature, whether that's the beaches on Cape Cod or up north in Maine to those national parks or Western Massachusetts. And it's just really pretty, and I enjoyed it. But once you got to New York City, it was full on kind of just city environment, sounds, and cars, trash trucks, and senses all over. And that was kind of part of the reason, too, of kind of numbing yourself to it, because after a while being in it day in, day out, it just is something else. And I'm glad that I had the experience of finding out who I was with nature prior to going there, because I knew what existed out of there. And a lot of times I was like, man, a lot of these folks, that are from here haven't left New York City or this tri-state area. And they don't know what it is out there. They don't know what they're missing, but then, what do you know, what you don't see? So I would always come back home during our ceremonial dances in June. So it's not like I was just always up there. I'd always have to come back home and recharge and then go back to New York City and get ready it was like taking a deep breath and then getting back into the jungle. Doing this. So I knew I had a place to go, and that was always really nice. And, but that's not the case for a lot of folks up that way.
Hi friends, just a really quick message to let you know, if you have not yet checked out our Red S recovery resource for free, 50 videos for free on YouTube. I hope you know by now that I'm not doing this to make money or to sell things to you. I literally am doing this because it is a passion of mine. It is important to me, and I knew how broken I felt. If there is anything in your running that feels off, and regardless of your weight, of your size, of your speed, of your gender, of the amount of miles you do per week, Red S can affect anyone and everyone. And I encourage you to go listen to it. Go watch those videos. They're short videos with experts, me asking the questions that people have asked me over the years. And it's really powerful. I'm really proud of what we made there. So go head over to YouTube, our Running for Real YouTube channel. You can find that by searching my name or for Running for Real, and you will find it. Go check it out and share it. That's the biggest thing I want to do. Just get it out there to people who need it, because I know how rough it is when you feel that way. So let's get back to what we were up to, but just wanted to let you know about that. Yeah, sure. And were you running during that time? Like, how did running come into the picture? Has that always been something you've done for life? Yeah, tell us about your running beginnings.
No, I didn't start running till kind of that big catalyst of decision. So I've only been running for about 7 years now. Prior to that, it was just cycling. I grew up around on bikes. There was a big moment too when I was, I think, 4. I remember, and my dad, he's a photographer and artist, and he was documenting and riding the first bike ride that the Cherokee Nation put on called Remember the Removal, and maybe 85, 84. And they retraced the Trail of Tears from North Carolina to Oklahoma on bikes. Oh. And I remember kind of, I think, being there at their arrival into Oklahoma and seeing them on bikes and these helmets with feathers on them. And I remember being so amazed. Like, there are a few moments of me in my childhood that I remember well, and that's one of them. Yeah. And I just thought, that's so cool. I was like 4 and being like, that's cool. Like I want to do that. So that was a big influence on me to be on bikes. And since then, a young kid, I was always riding around the blocks, playing on bikes. And then when it got to Boston, I met a lot of individuals who were bike messengers, and got a track bike and got to kind of explore the city through that and that culture. And then I went to New York City, and I was like, I need to make money. I need to work. So I knew what a messenger was at that point, and started riding with the company. And it was pretty hard that first year and first winter. Rain or shine, in the cold, knowing what to wear, and
especially biking.
Yeah, and it was just really brutal. And so I did that for about 7 years and 8 years in New York City. I was always racing too on the weekends. I found track racing on the velodrome to be fun, and then I was on a team with that, and also on the weekends. On some weekends, we would do alley cats in New York City, which are those illegal street messenger races. And there's checkpoints all over the city. And you just go from, who can route themselves the best, kind of mimicking the way you would picking up packages, the most efficient way to get the packages from point A to point B. Mm-hmm. So they have like 10 checkpoints all over from Battery Park to Harlem, west and east, and different locations. And you can go any route, but the first person who gets all the signatures at these places and back to the finish line is the winner. Oh, wow. And you can go against traffic. You can hold on to cars. You can take all the pathways to Central Park. It's just that was fun because that was fun. And
why was it illegal?
Because it's unsanctioned. It's just like it's not really. I mean, the legality of it. That's South. Yeah. I mean, anything in Manhattan and the streets kind of go for it, but yeah. Yeah, it's unsanctioned race, pretty much. Okay. So, and you ride at your own risk for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, when you said holding on to cars, I was like, oh, yeah, New York especially.
So, and I was good at that, and I was on a team as well, and we'd go to other cities, DC, Baltimore, Boston, Philadelphia, and race other messengers in those cities, and we'd beat them in their own town because we just had a different way about us of how we rode, and we're more aggressive and a bit faster. We like to champion ourselves as, because we're from New York. But that's what I did day in and day out on the bike, lived it, breathed it. And
was that meditative for you? Or like, was that kind of a calming, relaxing, or was that just a job?
It was a job for sure. I think at a time it lost its, I mean, it was calming. It was a good way to, like, in the morning riding over the bridge into Manhattan, but it was hard. It was hard work. And again, like I said, at that time, I was pretty much numbing myself to do it, because so I wasn't really looking at it in a meditative way or able to hold that space to do that. Really, I was probably going in a lot of those times, into the city, probably hungover from the night before from partying with others and other riders or whatever. So, so, and running didn't really happen for me till after that big, catalyst would change, and me wanted to get better. And before that, probably a year, there was a knee surgery as well. So that really kind of put things out for me to ride, and even to kind of mobility wise. So I had to look at things differently and just appreciate even being able to walk, really. And the running, interesting enough, was a way for me to rehabilitate my knee and move. But stationary bike helped that as well. But I was over bike at that point. I was physically just kind of like, I'm done with cycling. I need that. I need to just take a break from that. But I also needed to be healthy again, and walking and running 1 mile was good for me. And that's what set it off for me, running 1 mile on the treadmill. Once I got that done and I realized I could run nonstop for 1 mile, and I had to work up to that.
Yeah, sure. And
then I got it done and I was like so excited. And I think that's what kicked off everything else, really. So.
And now, what you said, 7 years later, you've done how many 100-milers have you done?
I've done 2 100-milers. I'll be doing my third one this year. Well, I did TDS, which is 92 miles.
Yes, I didn't know whether to include that or not. Yeah,
over 30,000. I'm going to include that too.
I think that definitely. I mean, I haven't done 100 miles to know the difference between 92 and 100, but it sounds it sounds like it should be included. So, yeah. So from that moment there of being able to run a mile, that's quite a long way to come in 7 years, especially as that, it's 7 years at this point, and those were 2019 was UTMB the first. Had you already done a 100-miler at that point, or was that the first run of that distance?
Yes, the UTMB was my longest distance.
Okay, yeah. So how did you get there? How did it become, I'm trying to run a mile, to I'm running 90 miles over 10,000 feet of elevation change?
Yeah, keep in mind I'm in Oklahoma. It's the highest elevation here in Tulsa is like 700 feet. So, and there's no elevation here. So that's kind of an interesting point to make before I even start talking.
Yeah.
But, from that mile on the treadmill, I was so stoked to get that done. And then there's a lake in Stillwater that has a 3-mile loop around it. And I was doing 1 mile runs around it. And at that pace, I think the pace probably at that point for me was, 12-minute miles or something. And then I was like, okay, now my goal is to run around this lake nonstop. That's it. And that's 5K. And I could get to 2 and then 3. And then I was really stoked on getting it done. And then I was like, I want to do 5Ks. And because there's plenty of them all over, and it gets you out there and you sign up and it gets you accountable to show up. And I enjoyed that part of it too. And then I started doing the 5Ks and I really found them to be really fun. And they would take me to different towns in Oklahoma I could run at and find and see new places in them and just kind of run with new community and people. And Not that I would really talk to a lot of people, but I would just be like, no one knows me, you know, kind of anonymous in it. And it was always challenging, you know, and I enjoyed the challenge of bettering my time. And it was just super fun because it would give me something to do and wake up to. And so I did those, and then I moved to 10Ks, and I enjoyed the 10K aspect of it. And at the time too, I think when I was really running, I was up in the Pacific Northwest in Seattle in like 2016. And that's when I kind of was like 15. And that's when I was kind of doing these 5Ks and 10Ks. And I was like quitting smoking as well. So I would like do these 5Ks and then go have a cigarette. Like,
you're not the first person I've heard say that.
and yeah, quitting smoking, that was a big, I think that's the most addictive thing out there. Tobacco, you know, it's way worse than alcohol. And I don't even know what, you know, they're both, you know, not great, but what's in there is so addicting. But I got a kick through running for sure. It made me accountable, and I was like, look, I can't do this anymore if I want to better my times and be a healthier. I can't. So that's kind of what I used it for. And 10Ks and got those done. And then I think I went up to half marathon. I think I chilled out a half marathon for a while, and then it went to 50K. But in those 5K times, you know, I think now I stand at a 5K, and now I'm still trying to get like, I think my 5K time today that I'm trying to do would be probably I think I could hit 17:30.
Yeah.
Sure. And
that's fast.
So that's
your current goal?
I'm at now, but then it was probably 32 minutes for a 5K, you know, and then in that interim of time in 3 years of running 5Ks and 10Ks, it was whittling that time down to like 20 minutes, 22 minutes. And I remember when it's like, I got to get sub 21 and I got to hit 20 minutes. There was one 5K in Seattle called Top Pot 5K around Green Lake. And I think that's where I hit, you know, the 20-minute mark. And I was super excited and stuff.
Yeah, I bet that's a long way to come.
And so, yeah. And I mean, that's been a journey in the whole whittling down the times and whatnot. It's been really fun for me. And yeah, half marathon to 50K, and 50K was in Tahlequah, Oklahoma at the Pumpkin Holler running festival they have every October. They have like 100-mile, 50-mile, 50K, and 25K. And now they have some gravel races there the following day. But it's a big loop around a nature preserve along a river. And I wanted that to be my first because I did grow up in northeastern Oklahoma, and some of the course goes along the river, Illinois River. And that's where I grew up on, have some of my earliest memories. So it was really special that I could run there and have that be my first like really long effort. And my dad was there to help me out. And that was really special too. And I learned a lot in that race. That was because I didn't know what I was doing. So I pretty much just gave it all I had. And luckily it worked out.
What did running mean to you at that moment? Like,
what's that?
What did running mean to you at that moment? Like, were you aware of more, like, how had your relationship to it changed by that point?
I think at that point I knew that there's like a culture of like trail running, of endurance. And I was really still new to it, but so excited about the potential in it, you know, excited about the potential in what I became and how strong I become in finding these distances. And I still have it. I'm still excited about it. I still have fun with it. And I just enjoyed it for the process. And I really used it as a tool to like meditate as well. I remember at some points on that race, I really kind of dug deep and just kind of really focused on the organic nature aspect of it, like watching the leaves move in the wind, and as my feet kind of were cramping and being like, I'm a part of that. Just really taking things in and breathing and running And I think that was the first time I tried to make a big connection to kind of my surrounding and to help me run how I wanted to run, how I knew I could run, to get to these longer efforts and this distance I needed to hit of 32 miles. And also, learning nutrition and what that was for me. And so there's a lot of things that really transpired in that race and that happened for me. Remember, there was a story in that race. There was one guy, we were all running as a pack, and he was like, "Oh, how many like ultras have you done?" I was like, "This is my first." He's like, "Oh man, you better like slow down." Like, I don't know. He said something. I was like, "Oh, he doesn't even like, why would he say that?" Like in my mind. And then when we got to the end of the race, and it gets hot in Oklahoma. And so it's kind of hot and humid as well, for sure. Humid. And I got to like the final, like end of it, and probably like almost like half a mile to the finish line. And he was like laying on the side of the road getting medical help.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, wow. I was like, okay, he said that to me, and now he's like out, like why? Like it didn't make sense to me. It's like, okay, he can't control his pace. Why would he like telling me to?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was kind of something. It was just something that I saw that thought was interesting,
Did that teach you something about like listening to yourself and what you
for sure
know about you? Like you obviously either didn't listen to him, or did you?
No, I didn't listen to him, and I would never say that to somebody. I don't know where someone's coming from. I think in the sport it's so individual, but I think who I am is someone that's, I came from a challenging place, and I don't know where this other person is coming from. So I have no business saying anything to them really, but just appreciating them and for that, they're probably trying to enjoy it as well, So I learned something from there to probably not say things, but it just kind of reestablishes, I think, about who I want to be as a runner.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that was a moment in that.
Absolutely.
Ultra.
I want to jump ahead to you running Western States last year, as I want to make sure we have plenty of time to talk about this, as it was quite a momentous moment with the work you were doing with in support of the Running on Native Lands initiative, which was spearheaded by Rising Hearts. Jordan has been a guest on this podcast. She's a good friend to both of us. And, I want to talk about your opportunity there. So if you would share, from your perspective, how that came about and what that meant to get that bib to run at Western States.
Yeah, she reached out to me, I think via direct message on Instagram. And she was like, hey, would you run at Western States? And I was like, a no-brainer. I was like, yes.
You knew what it was, and you were well aware of the...
I knew what it was, and that goes back from that first 50K to kind of jumping in. I reading Trail Runner magazine and just being a student of it, enamoring myself with all the information I could about this sport that has a long history and all these races and history. And in Western States, kind of stuck out to me as I got familiar with kind of the history. And it didn't seem like anything I would do, or not would. I definitely was like, that'd be fun to run. But it's also at the same time as our ceremonial dances in June. So I know in the last 4 years, we do our ceremonial dances, and I'm always on the phone afterwards looking at who won the race or following Jim Walmsley,
So it's the same weekend usually? Yeah,
it's the same weekend. Yeah, as my district's dance. So I remember always like getting in the evening and looking at, okay, where's everybody at? Like looking at the standings. So, I'd follow it for sure. But I just, due to the difficulty of getting in, I just didn't even really bother. It's like, I'm never going to run it, like I'm not going to like try, I enjoy running the races that I do and where, and I have my obligations here at home. So I'm not really going to go hard at trying to get in there. I did, though, which enabled me to run it, because you do need to have a qualifier. I did run Black Canyon, I think the year prior or 2 years prior, 100K. And I don't think I ran it to get the Western States qualifier. I think I ran it just to run it. And because that's what I love about trail running and ultras, that I can go all over the world and see beautiful places. And that's part of the journey and lure for me to do that. And so Black Canyon was a part of that. But I ran it and got the qualifier, not knowing that this would happen.
Oh, you did get a qualifier. Okay.
Yeah. And lucky for me, I did have a qualifier. So I was like, oh man, yeah, totally. Let's do this. And at that moment I agreed, because I knew that I would have to sacrifice this moment to like not be there at the dances, but that's okay. I do what I do and I show up to the dances. It's not the only weekend. It's pretty much the whole month of June in different districts. So, it would be all right. I knew that this would be a representation for something important to me and who I am and in Native communities all over. So I think it was worthwhile kind of sacrifice to kind of, do this and put all the energy into this. But I was really excited that I couldn't believe it that, I'm going to be running Western States, depending on how much of a trail runner and ultra runner you are, the degree of it, I think it would be something a lot of individuals would want to have a part of them, that experience. Yeah. So it was so exciting. And then from there, Jordan and I just, continued talking to what that would look like. And there's a lot in it, as you know.
Thank you to Tracksmith for sponsoring this episode of the Running For Real podcast. I am excited that we are getting into short season, which means my session speed shorts can come back out of my drawer and be back onto my legs for the rest of the summer. I'm still wearing the same pairs I was given in 2019. They're in just as good condition. They will be worn week in, week out, and I love them. And with the speed session shorts right now, there are some cool new colors for you to go check out. I don't need those new colors because, as I said, my current pair are working just fine. Now, Tracksmith is an independent running brand inspired by a deep love of the sport. As the weather has warmed and training is underway, these speed session shorts I just mentioned there are my favorite go-to for my long runs, for my regular runs, for everything in between, and they have a new spring collection. They feature an exposed elastic waistband and a lightweight liner, so they feel as light as air and they're barely there. And I can really attest to that. For first-time purchasers, you can use code TINANEW, that's N-E-W, TINANEW, for $15 off your order of $75 or more. For returning customers, you can use the code TINAGIVE, TINA, G-I-V-E, for free shipping and a donation to support Track Girls, which is a non-profit working to help young girls in the sport of track and field. So go check that out. Thank you so much to Tracksmith for their support, and I can't wait to hear what you think of your speed session shorts. Yeah, so let's talk about some of the other elements beyond the run itself. This was, and I should mention at this point, there is, not as we are talking, but as of this being released, there is a film made by Rising Hearts that know to run. And it's going to celebrate the first that we're about to talk about. So the first land acknowledgement, the first Indigenous made poster, which was you, which we will talk about in a second, and the first Indigenous runners panel. What did that mean to be a part of this Western States that was kind of, really paving a path forward for setting the stage for years to come?
It was, I mean, it's hard to put into words what that experience was. It was really special. I knew when Jordan reached out that this was going to be a big thing, for us as individuals and for the people that we're going to be working with. For Western States as an organization, it was going to be a new foot forward for them and working with the Native communities, the Washoe communities, Herman Fillmore, who graciously gave us his time to work with us and share so much of who he is in his community and his family as well. The Western States Organization, learning from him, and us as well with Goo Energy, myself and Jordan, learning from Herman. So I owe a lot and praise them, because, that without them, we couldn't have done any of this, But as the runner, I was kind of an advocate through movement, and taking Jordan's words and Herman's words and putting them out there and onto the trails as a representative of the Indigenous community through motion. Mm-hmm. And so that was a big role for me, because at the same time, what I've learned over the years as being an artist, and that's my profession, yep. And doing panel talks and whatnot, and learning from other artists over the years in my journey to being the artist of who I am, is that words take places. Words take you places. Stories take you places. Take the work that you're making, the paintings that I make, further into other dimensions and places for people to feel and understand. And I've learned to kind of be better about that and how to do that. I wouldn't say eloquently, but maybe more articulately. And as a runner, that's kind of the same thing, what I've done. So I think that really enabled me to be able to show up for this occasion and this event and this inauguration, to be the representative in a good faith and in good faith, and with a good heart and good words to help push that forward. Yes. So it was really special. I think the organization of Western States learned a lot. I know that at the beginning they were hesitant, and only hesitant because they were unfamiliar with what land acknowledgement meant, really? Or what working with the Native community meant. They did change the name of the Olympic Valley from what it was before, and I was really happy about that. And now it's See You at States as opposed to See You at the Other. So there's good efforts being made to be conscious about the words that we use and the place names of these spaces. And Herman Fillmore and the Washoe tribe need to be acknowledged for that, because those are the important and homelands for them. Yeah. And the Western States Trail does cross that, and it goes into Nisenan territory as well, further down once you get towards Auburn. It was a beautiful learning experience. They learned a lot, and then they were really happy. I think they could tell that there was a moment for them. I felt like that it was, this isn't so bad. This is good, but I can see that kind of hesitancy or kind of unfamiliarness. That's how we as Indigenous people often have to operate, when we have agendas that are always there, that are pressed with us as who we are in a political state, an asylum of the United States. We always have to speak up. We always have to show up a little bit harder than other individuals because of where we come from. And when it comes to trail running, which is something I learned in the whole years of me being a practitioner of it, from that first 50K and reading Trail Running Magazine or Ultra Runner Magazine, is that I see little representation here, none of Native runners or Black even. And then I read a lot of the columns and of these interviews or articles, and I read about them talking about these trails, but there's no inclusion about what these trails are, what this mountain is called, these reservations nearby, their lands. And what I saw was a lot of trail runners and the culture being really about these lands, celebrating life and land and being beautiful, but yet not acknowledging that aspect of indigeneity of it, which to me was just kind of wild, because without that knowledge, how can you truly be, a part of it? I think you're missing a big component to it, to be someone who celebrates the land and run with it and feel it. So these efforts that we had at Western States were all about that. We're all about that conversation. Yeah. Getting magazines to kind of cover the article, and not just cover it because it needs to happen, but because it should, and because we want to make and ricochet and echo these feelings. So they're out there and they stay the course from here on out.
Yep.
They influence other Native runners. They can influence Native communities to have space to foster running and wellness, and so Western States organization can be a part of that. And I think a lot of trail running organizations, directors and whatnot would be good to kind of reach out to these Native communities and maybe implement some kind of resource for them.
Yeah.
To connect it. It's not an easy thing to show up to these races and travel and fly and have what you need to do these races with race fees and flights. I mean, it adds up really quickly. To have the time to train is another luxury, that I've come to notice as well. So there's a lot of aspects to it, really. And when it comes to my participation in Western States with Rising Hearts and GOO, we kind of looked at it all. We looked at it all, we broke it down, and we did it together as a community for change, as a collaboration for change. And I felt it was really successful. And I was really humbled by the opportunity to be the first one and runner to do that. The race itself was spectacular. Some problems arose for me in that race. I'd gotten sick about 2 weeks before with COVID for the first time, and I think I got it probably coming back from the training camp up there at Western States. But I was running really strong up there for those 3 days, feeling good, really strong, and I was working with Patrick Reagan. He's my coach, and was ready for the race, and then I got really sick, and it depleted my muscles like I'd never felt. Well, I'd never gotten COVID till then. And I felt like all the training that I had done to that point, and then getting sick, just that COVID just really kind of like, I felt like it just took my muscles and just like, bringed them out and left me with something, I don't know what, but still showed up, did the race, and I could tell that was still a factor in the muscles, in the quads and things like that. And so I wasn't 100%. Still did it well. But the end of it, should I talk about that aspect in the race or?
Sure. Yeah. Let's. Well, I want to, before you do just go there, I just want to highlight and emphasize what you were saying. Well, two things. One, you mentioned about, the magazines and representation. And I do agree that over the years, there has been absolutely bare minimum in terms of meaningful action that's been taken. And I know Zoe Rome, who's the editor-in-chief at Trail Runner Mag, over the recent year has really been making a push. And I hope you have seen kind of some shift there, because I know personally that she is working so hard to make change go across the board and really do it in a sustainable way, especially in terms of Indigenous representation and addressing those issues that you mentioned, inclusivity, accessibility, affordability, because that is a big piece that we haven't talked about. So, I just wanted to mention that because I don't know. I guess I'm curious if you have seen changes over the last year in some areas, even if it's not to where it needs to be. And that's what you and Jordan and GOO and others are pushing for.
Yeah, I've definitely seen it. And it's not to say that there's none of it. I've definitely seen it, you mentioned, in those years from those contributed writers for sure, who I've gotten to meet and have become acquainted with them and friends with them and run with them as well. So I really applaud that, and I hope that continues to be something that is part of the norm and included in these magazines, because there is a whole community that needs to be covered, just as much as the other, and even during, in 2020 when, with George Floyd and everything, it was a jump to cover Black runners and whatnot in community. And and that needs to stay the same as well. And so with Indigenous running, I mean, you could even have an Indigenous running magazine. There's that much, for sure. So it's like, but yeah, no, I definitely see that shift, and I'm definitely appreciative of it.
Yeah. And I wasn't saying that to just talk about how great that is now. I wanted to just mention that, but I would love for you to continue with what you were going to say about the race. So.
Yeah. So going back to that thing too, it's like what we created, that Western States and the community we created is there to kind of give more resource to those necessary components to create more space in these publications. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's growing. The race, recovering from COVID and showing up and having so much support, it was beautiful. I had a whole awesome team.
You did. You had a big crew
of native runners that were helping me, pace me. And, we had a beautiful dinner. Celia made homemade pasta from goo and gave out gifts and just, celebrated being together and celebrated life and what this journey was going to be. The morning before, Herman and his sister, met us down there at the ski basin. And it was, I think it'll be in the film too that comes out, and, gave me a few things that were preyed upon to carry during the race and help me out, which is so meaningful. And I did carry those up there, through the trails. And that was a really beautiful moment because I knew what I was running for, and I was going to be running for strength and compassion, but running for a community, running for people, and to have these objects and these items in my hand, in my pack, was just something so special, it's hard to put in words, but it was just, I'm definitely going to run this, I'm going to finish this. I knew that much, because of that. So, went into the race, and my goal was sub 24 for sure. And, so we're just going to see how that played out. Gotten all the water crossings, as, per my coach said, laying them, get wet, and, did
just
that.
To cool off.
Yeah. Just to cool off, stay maintained, stay cool, ice up, had my ice bandanas with me, and, we got to the 50K mark, and my crew wasn't there. We had dogs with us, and so they had taken the dogs to some people who were going to watch them that they found on this dog site. And that didn't turn out well. So they had to go back and get the dogs. And so they weren't able to meet me at the checkpoint.
Oh, no.
So I had a running pack on. No, I had a running pack on, I think. And I was wearing like dark gear. And at that point, I was going to take off my running vest, change into something light, and just have handhelds. And so I wasn't able to do that. I had to continue wearing all that. And then I wasn't able to change my socks either.
Oh, no.
Which were wet. And I learned a lot in this race. If I were to do Western States again, which I hope I will someday, a lot of things are going to be different. I'll know how to maintain or what to do. Carry an extra pair of socks for sure.
I'm banking that in my brain for us to use it.
And with you. And so then I went to the canyons, just kind of like wearing the same stuff that I just had at the mark. And I thought I had resilient feet, but, blisters started happening, and I got to somewhere in the canyons and changed out. I had to ask a volunteer if I could have their socks. And,
what mile was this?
That was probably mile 40.
Okay. So still quite a way to go.
Yeah. So, where I changed into this guy at aid station and his socks, he gave me his socks, and I was really thankful for that. But I think at that point, the damage was kind of already done. What was going to happen, and still was getting wet, still moving, and I could feel blisters forming. And I got out of the canyons and made it to, Forest Hill where I needed to be. And I was moving slower because of, I think, those blisters for sure. And changed my socks. That's the first time I think I was finally able to change my socks at Forest Hill. And or the aid station before Forest Hill, Michigan Bluff, I think, and got crew and everything and changed out of things. But when I did get to Forest Hill, I picked up my pacer and was running pretty good. My feet we put stuff what we needed to put on my feet, and we got out of there, and it was just a descent. But that's when my legs started to lock up, my quads and hamstrings, and it was so hard for me to descend at a certain point for those next miles down towards the river, and then I felt the blisters open up as well, and I felt them open up, and at that point it was like I forgot what you call it when your feet are like that.
Not the rot thing.
Yeah.
Trench foot.
No. But there's a word for it. I can't recall, but
I don't know what it is.
Anyway, I mean, any other ultra runner who knows this is going to know. But anyway, so my feet were bad, both of them, and they were opened up, and it was the worst pain I'd felt, and my legs were locked to move down, and I just had to stop for a second, and I was just like the worst pain I felt ever. But I moved through.
Ever in your life was that moment?
I think a pain that was close to it was like my meniscus.
Oh, yeah, that's a pretty big moment. So, okay, that was a sit in perspective.
It was close to there, but I had a great Craig Curley. He was my pacer. He's an amazing native runner. I think he'll be doing Western States at some point as well, and look out for him because I'm sure he has top 10 capabilities for sure. He really helped me out a lot. His words helped me out, and but I knew what I was running for. And I in the ultra running and those hours, I know what can happen, and luckily, some of these races that I'd done prior to Western States really helped me kind of understand how to handle that pain, how to handle movement, and keep moving forward. Up until that point, it was a beautiful, beautiful experience. Even in the dark times, even in the pains of it, and figuring out and feeling what is going to possibly happen, just pushing myself and running with other runners, and seeing them as well do their own thing, and looking down at my shorts and seeing a Western States bib. It was just like, I can't believe I'm doing this. I mean, even in the midst of what was happening, it was like, I'm in this race, I'm going to be going down on that track and crossing that, magical, famous, finish line. And it was really powerful. And that's what helped me move through that. And I got to Rucky Chucky, and I was hoping there'd be something on the other side of the river as opposed to me working on my feet and then having to get back in the water.
You have to cross again after that station.
So it's like, okay, well, we can just bandage your feet, and then that's what's going to happen. That's all you can do. So that's what I did. And that was really hard to cross the river with my feet like that, and then walk up the hill and got food and got another pacer, and Celia was there to walk with me as well from Goo Nutrition. And I was like, okay, we're on the home stretch now. I know that section because I ran a lot of that during the 3 days of the running clinic there at Western States. And it's a very runnable section. And I did find another air of effort to run strong with, and another wind, and ran pretty well. And then it kind of, set in again. And at that point, though, in that section, I realized I wasn't going to hit 24. And that was kind of upsetting for me. And I had to just kind of like move through that mindset. And at one point, I was running to try to hit 24. And so I was like running, like trying 30-minute miles, in that section from all this pain. And thinking maybe I have a chance, if I can run this next like 20-something miles. And, was like, but then I remember getting to one of those aid stations down there, and Scott Jurek was down there manning that aid station, and it was pretty cool to see him, there. And
I bet.
He's like, okay, I have some soup, and he's like, you're still like 26-hour mark, so you can get that if you still have legs. And I was like, okay. And the thing that really upset me too is I didn't hit No Hands Bridge in the dark. So I always envisioned myself doing that with those lights and whatnot, and that wasn't the case for sure. And at that point, I had another pacer, Lydia, who was also a big proponent in my running, and she helped pace me at Ouray 100 in the last section of miles. So she was going to help me pace me in this last section of miles too, because whenever she's with me, we always get it done for sure. And she is an amazing person herself.
Yeah, she's been on the podcast, so people can go listen to that after this.
Yeah, go listen to Lydia speak. Very, very awesome, beautiful knowledge as it carries. But my legs were not working, and I was just in so much pain going down that last section, and that last 10 miles, really 5 miles, I really had to hold on to her shoulder but at some point I just had to run because I knew what time I wanted, and I was just crying because it was so much pain.
Yeah.
But it was tears of it was serious crying. It was tears of joy, tears of pain, and just kind of in memory too, for what I was running for.
Really, absolutely.
And so, but at that point, I transcended something to a pain that I thought I couldn't get over, a physical pain, and push through that mentally to run this technical section down. So that was a really beautiful moment that really was touching for me, and made it through the bridge and went up, and then it was just a home stretch, and I had to walk some of that mile down there, and then the team met me kind of about a mile out from the track, a big crew of us, and it was just so special.
Yeah.
And at that point, I somehow found legs to run 8-minute miles. So,
Yeah. And I encourage people to go watch the video that will be out by the time this comes out, to go see it, because you can really, it's cool hearing you explain it, because you can see, you kind of see it and feel it. But now hearing, you've given us obviously new depths, new levels of explaining it. So, it is pretty powerful to watch. So.
Yeah, it was super magical to run that, finish it, and have so much support. It was just a feeling. And I'm just so glad that it all worked out, and we all could be there to do that together.
Such a
it all started from Jordan reaching out stadiums around Western states. So.
Yeah, well, and Rising Hearts is returning this year to do it all over again. So. Yeah, looking forward to seeing the progressions, and Kelly will be running the race with Rising Hearts, and I guess supported by Goo again. Which, by the way, you are the artist of the new Goo flavor, which is, as this comes out, already out. So 10% of the profits are donated to Rising Hearts. Yeah, raspberry lemonade. Does it taste good? I haven't tried it.
Yeah, it tastes pretty good. You should. I'd love to get some sent to you.
Yeah. So. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But I also want to get some to support Rising Hearts. But Yatika, I would love to, hear if there's anything else you want to share with the running community, remind the running community. We didn't even get to go into your art and how running and art intersect, and your background and all the other parts of you, but that can be for a future episode. But is there anything else you want to share with the audience in this moment?
I just want to thank the audience, whoever listens to this. I appreciate your time and your ears. I appreciate your journey and where you're coming from. And that, take time for yourself to really listen to yourself and know maybe a bit of history, where you come from, the trails that you're on. If you're not Native, maybe looking to see what close Native community is near you, and maybe how you could possibly help them with the enjoyment that you have with running, your connection to it. Yeah. And, I know we're all on a point of departure for healing, for most of us and for all of us, it's as human beings, it's kind of who we are. We're vessels of emotion and feelings, and
Absolutely.
hold so much. And the world that we live in today is constructed by all out these outer things that have been constructed by expansion of economics and extraction,
Yeah.
and with it comes a lot of dark negativity. But I think what's beautiful about running is that most of us are on a journey to find something good for ourselves, and and just know that there is good in it, and the nature provides that. The soil under our feet, the moving trees, the limbs, the clouds above, the animals out there also watching us share it as well, and just hold space for that beauty, and the outside influences. Not so much is, and that's the same thing I'm trying to do, is just trying to really regulate who I am, my true self, in this world, and how to better myself, but also how to better the community and what I can do to see and be the change that I want, really. So I just appreciate you all for being here and being who you are.
I love that. Thank you. And you just reminded me of another thing we didn't get to talk about, which is your activism, which we can save that for another time. Thank you so much for those words and for sharing with us, for being vulnerable with us, and just, highlighting the importance of these conversations. Where can people go find you in future reference, following along with what you are up to?
I think a good place to be would be on Instagram. That's where I post a lot of content, my paintings, and my website, Yatika Starr Fields, which usually there's a link on my Instagram. And that's pretty much it. I try to have a good presence on there with what I'm doing, and I post my artwork and my running as well. So I think that would be the best place for sure.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And again, thank you for sharing your heart, your journey, your vulnerability with us. This is such an important, so important to have these conversations, and for people to listen, to learn, for us all to grow and heal, as you mentioned. So appreciate you joining me.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's been fun to kind of recap and go over all that. It's a lot to do, but I really enjoyed it.
The Running for Real podcast and everything we do here at Running for Real would not be possible if it wasn't for the Running for Real team. While I am the person who you hear from most often and maybe the face of the brand, the rest of our team are such critical pieces of what we do. And without them, I think I'd just be running around in circles with ideas. So I want to take a moment to thank our team. To Jeremy Nessel, who's been with me since the very beginning. Kat McKay, Sally Pontarelli, Kelsey Wang, Sandy Gutierrez, Louise Murphy, Andrew Basola, Alexandria Will, and Maria Vargas. Thank you to each and every one of you for all that you give to Running for Real and our community. I appreciate you, and I'm so thankful for having you as a part of the team. I hope you enjoyed that episode as much as I did. Thank you so much for listening today, and I want to encourage you, be sure to go check out the links in the show notes. There will be lots of them. There will be links to Yatika's work, to following along with him in the future, as well as the Running on Native Lands initiatives, primarily by Rising Hearts, which you will remember from Jordan Marie Daniel, who is another previous podcast guest. You can check those out, as well as this new goo flavor in which Yatika designed the 8-pack for this raspberry lemonade flavor. So go check that out there. Also, links to our sponsors will be in the show notes at runningforreal.com/episode 343. And I want to remind you that our sponsors for today were Örlö. You can go to the link in the show notes to get 12% off at Örlö. You can also check out our Red S recovery resource on YouTube, which is something I've been mentioning and worked really hard on lately. You could learn a lot there. And also, to Tracksmith, you can either get $15 off if you are a new customer by using the code TINANEW, or you can use the code TinaGive if you want to donate 5% of whatever you are spending to Track Girls, which is our nonprofit we are supporting for the month. Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to go check out runningforreal.com/episode 343. I will see you next week. Thanks for listening.